All right, let's get started. I'm Maddy Hawkins. I lead IoT and AR sales at Aquitas Solutions. We're an IBM and PTC business partner. And today we're going to be talking about augmented reality and its new critical role in maintenance operations. And we're going to also share demos of two fantastic solutions through our partner PTC, Chalk and Expert Capture. I do want to point out that we do have Dmitry Slavkovic from PTC here to answer any technical questions. So you will also see a few guest appearances along the way, including an interview with one of my personal favorite Maximo super users, Jason Burley from AgriPure. Now, before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items. This meeting is being recorded and will be sent out following the webcast along with the slides. And also all participants have been muted until the end of the presentation. So in the meantime and throughout the presentation, please submit any questions that you have in the chat window. We have a lot to cover, so we will be limited on time. So we encourage you to leverage this feature. All right, getting into the exciting stuff now. So when we talk about digital transformation in the industrial world, really what we're talking about is connecting products, people, and processes in a smart, connected way that drives automation and business outcomes. And augmented reality really focuses on the people aspect and how to get the right information to our people in the right context so that they can get the job done. And now, before COVID hit, we were really already seeing a shift in the market from the way that people looked at augmented reality. I'd say towards the end of 2019 and early 2020 especially, AR really started becoming something that people were asking about, evaluating, and budgeting for, not just something that was really cool to look at, you know, if you're walking a conference trade show floor. But this was really driven by these three core needs that you see on the screen to address the worker skill gap left from our experienced technicians retiring, complex workspaces. We really needed to become more agile and enable our technicians to complete work or processes that they've never done before, even on new equipment, and ultimately perform better by enabling faster and more effective work in the field or on the factory floor. Now, really, COVID right now could just be one word across this whole screen, but you know, while COVID certainly ignited the immediate and obvious need, but you know, even if COVID goes away, these original drivers still exist and will continue to grow, even if and when COVID is ever over. So it's good to know that, you know, even before this happened, we were seeing a very steady incline, a rapid incline, if you will, in people looking at augmented reality and how we can use it in maintenance. Now, really, the question we need to be asking is, how do we use digital to enable frontline workers to get the job done without that human infrastructure that they used to depend on physically being there? So we're going to talk about and show demos of two solutions that do just that, starting with Expert Capture for augmented reality enabled work capture and instruction. So looking at Expert Capture, you know, using Expert Capture, the best practice of your subject matter expert is captured while they work using either a RealWear or a HoloLens device. And these are made available to any worker across the enterprise to enable them to effectively and efficiently perform that same procedure. So really with Expert Capture, we rapidly make the best practice become a standard practice for all workers. So really a key there with Expert Capture. And how we do this is first by effortlessly capturing that domain expertise to create that step-by-step instruction for hands-on training or guidance. And then we simplify the process of editing and publishing this and fine-tuning it through this web-based environment for Expert Capture. And then finally, we equip the workers and the frontline workers with essential instructions at their fingertips. And we do this through dynamic content delivery to really multiple devices from the HoloLens or RealWear, you know, head devices to mobile tablets, all the way to, you know, a printable document if needed. So at this point, what I'm going to do is switch over to a demo of Expert Capture from a colleague at PTC, Matt Mason, who's going to walk us through each phase of the process. And Matt is going to be using a RealWear device, by the way, for the demo.
So it's a 3D printed chassis, so pretty straightforward. And it also has an onboard Raspberry Pi. So that's just a computer and an operating system that allows you to connect sensors, get Wi-Fi connectivity so you can communicate values that you're collecting. And then it just has some simple hardware so that we can fasten that and put it together. So to assemble this thing completely from start to finish, I think it's about 9 or 10 steps. But for the sake of the demonstration and for time purposes, I'm going to consolidate some of this stuff into a single step. So we're not gonna screw in every screw for the Raspberry Pi. We're not gonna assemble the little spacer and things like that. I already put those together. So we'll try to keep this to 3 or 4 steps, but from a demo purpose, just get the idea of how this works and what we can do. So when I've got this set, I'll say start capture. So now we can see that we've started on step number 1. It shows that we are recording, so it's going to record my voice, anything I talk about while we're doing this. Another important feature here with this RealWear device, so this is designed for industrial use cases. The noise filtering capability is spec'd at 95 decibels, meaning any environmental noise up to 95 decibels will be filtered out when you view your captured footage. And I can attest it is good up to every last decibel of that rating. There's one story from late last year. I was at a textile manufacturer down in South Carolina. They had a couple areas that were double hearing protection, meaning it was 105 decibels plus. So we took the RealWear device in there. It didn't pick up every single voice command on the first try, but even at 100 plus decibels, we were still able to perform a capture and get usable content out of that. So it was pretty impressive. So some other things here, if you're working in a low light environment, you could say flashlight on. So that will turn on an integrated flashlight. So that will illuminate your space for you. Flashlight off. You can also zoom in and zoom out. So you could go direct, say zoom level 4. Zoom level 4. So that zooms your camera all the way in. Zoom level 1. Zooms your camera back out. While you're in a step, if something is important or you want to draw attention to it, so say maybe I just want to showcase all the components and the tools that we're going to use, I could say take photo. Take photo. And sometimes I have to repeat myself. What it actually tries to do is if you're talking continuously, it tries not to trigger some of the voice commands, because that can happen where you unintentionally say a voice command as part of your steps. So as best practice, you actually want to pause before you give a voice command, but sometimes for the demo, I get a little bit ahead of myself. So now we'll walk through this in a step-by-step fashion. So I'm going to play the expert. I'm the Sigma tile assembler. This step number 1 was more of an introductory kind of thing. So we could actually scrap this. So I could just move to another step, and then when we edit it, we can just sort of pull out step number 1 because it's just me talking about the device in the UI, and then each additional step will be what we actually wanted to capture. Next step, insert the Raspberry Pi into the Sigma tile chassis. Make sure your ports are aligned to the large opening on the right-hand side. Take photo. Next step. Remove the machine screw from the lid. Place the lid on top of the Sigma tile. Align this hole with the control knob. Take photo. Next step. Insert the machine screw into the top and tighten with a Phillips head screwdriver. Take photo. Finish capture. Edit title. Sigma tile example. Accept. Save capture. Done. So that's the basics of the capture process. So I'm going to open up, I have a web browser here. I've already logged into it, but you can see I'm logged into the Euphoria editor. This is just a simple web URL. Here's some procedures I've already created, and there's a little bit of access control in play here. So some things that you can do, if you have a procedure that maybe you're sharing and working on with others, you can make it available for other folks to edit. Or if you want more control, you can set up your procedures so that only you can edit them and work on them. So there's that level of flexibility. Here we'll create a new procedure. Actually, before we do that, I need to pull it off the device and copy it to my desktop. So give me 1 second to do that here. So I'll pull this window over for a second so you can see when I connect the RealWear device to my laptop, it shows me a grouping of captures that I've created. So here's the one we just did. Today's date, 10 minutes ago is when we started that. So you can see I've done a lot of these Sigma tile captures here, but we'll just copy that and paste it to the desktop. So now that it's there, I can say browse. We'll go to the desktop. We'll do the Sigma tile example that we just created, and we'll say upload. So this will upload all the pictures that I took, the videos that I took. Something else that it does in the background, it keeps a timeline as we go through that. So every time I said next step, it creates a breakpoint, and it clusters that content together. So the picture that I took in step 1 stays with step 1. The picture that I took with step 2 stays with step 2, etc. So you can see that on the timeline here. So there's step number 1. There's the picture that I took. Step number 2. There's the picture that we took. So this content is broken down by step. Within each individual step, you can do some other things. So, like step number 1, we were doing a user interface overview and things like that. So this isn't something that you'd want to push downstream. So you could actually remove that. I could say delete step number 1, and now step number 2 becomes our new first step in the procedure. So that's inserting the Raspberry Pi. We can make that our step name, insert Raspberry Pi. You can add as much or as little text as you want. Personal recommendation is try to keep your text short. Use your text to set up, what it is they're going to do in the step, but let the video or the images convey what they're supposed to do. You don't want to have just walls of text here. Otherwise, it's really no different than creating a Word document or a PDF file. So there's the image that we took. I can also drag the movie file over there. And then it becomes personal preference. If you want someone to view the video, then look at the picture that shows them what the finished product should look like at that step. You can arrange it that way. Or you can do it the other way. Show them what the end result should look like, and then they view a video that tells them how to get there. So from our perspective, we don't care. But based on how you want to present this information, you have the flexibility to change that. Step number 2, we could do something a little bit different. Maybe I didn't like the way I captured the second step from this particular capture. Instead of running back out to the shop floor and trying to do it again, I could go back to my capture library and say this Sigma tile example that I did a week or so ago. Maybe I want to use, whoops, I accidentally left my procedure. Maybe I want to use that capture content and pull some of that in there. So let's just open that one and say, whoops, that wasn't a Sigma tile. I want to use this step number 2. So I could grab that movie file and drag it in there. So again, this sets up the idea of reuse. So you can leverage existing content. I could upload a picture from my laptop. So let's just go to my data transfer folder. Here I have a project where I was working on how to set up a RealWear device. So I could pull that picture in there. So again, I'm not limited to what I captured in my session. I can pull content from various sources, reuse legacy content, repurpose legacy content. Another example I've seen quite often is companies that have already created or tried to start creating standard operating procedures, they already have a lot of images. They might already have some videos, but they don't have the ability to distribute that to smartphones and tablets and eyewear. So this is a nice way to do that. You can leverage that existing content, drag and drop it in here, publish your procedure, and now it's available to use across all those different platforms. So I'm going to jump back here to my procedures. Instead of going through the entire editing process, we'll look at this one that's already done. This one was a little bit more in depth. I added, like what type of tools I was using, what size Allen key, how many bolts. We have a memory card that we can stick in there, things like that. So when we go to publish this, you can see you get different options. You get a QR code. So again, this QR code, actually any of these, the QR code, the link for desktop playback, device playback, these are all URLs that you could include in your ThingWorx mashups. So, if you have a particular operation or sequence that's part of that job plan, you could include QR codes. They could scan it with their phone. You can include a link for desktop playback. I'll click on this just so you can see what that looks like. So in your web browser, you could play back that published procedure. So same thing, we're doing the Sigma tile assembly. Walk me through that process.
Insert the Raspberry Pi chassis.
Try to turn the volume up.
Insert the Raspberry Pi into the Sigma tile chassis.
So this video was a little bit different. I just said, insert the Sigma tile. Yeah, Sigma tile. Let me rephrase that. Insert the Raspberry Pi into the Sigma tile chassis. But when I did the capture today, what I did a little bit different was I added some of that best practice or experiential knowledge. Like, hey, make sure that you have the ports aligned in the right direction, because the Raspberry Pi itself will fit in there both ways. So make sure you put it in with that stuff aligned correctly. So those are some of the things that you can take advantage of with an expert doing this capture. But the playback, again, pretty straightforward. You hit the next or the back buttons to go to the next or the previous step. If you hit open, you can view this in full screen. In full screen, you have different options to pause, rewind the video, playback. If there are multiple images and videos in a step, you get the little dots at the bottom indicating that there's additional content. So in this case, we had the video first, and then we had the picture. And for processes and procedures that are exceptionally long, there's the ability to jump to a specific step. So I could say, hey, I know that the person before me already completed steps 1 through 3. I want to jump straight to step number 4. Now, obviously, for a 5-step process, not that big of a deal, but my own personal experience, I think the biggest procedure I've seen so far, we had a company, again, industrial equipment side, building trucks, dump trucks. One of their subsequences was 57 steps. So obviously it was time consuming. And if they run anywhere from 2 to 3 shifts a day. So if you get into a scenario where maybe you got through the first 20 something steps on your shift, and now it's time for a shift change, you can inform the next person taking over, hey, you actually can start at step number 26 because I already got through the first 25. So they could come in here, view step list, and go straight to that step. But the nice thing about this is, regardless of whether, right now we're looking at this on desktop, if we were looking at it on a smartphone or a tablet, the user interface is the same, the layout's the same, color schemes, fonts, all that stuff. So the other benefit there is it makes it easier to scale this.
All right, now we're going to switch gears and talk about Vuforia Chalk for augmented remote collaboration and assistance. So with Chalk, the goal is to connect remote experts with service technicians and frontline workers, both inside or outside of your organization, so that we can ultimately accelerate the time to resolution and eliminate or resolve the problem of needing to have on-site visits. How this works, and you're going to see an example of this play on the left-hand side. is really by allowing technicians who are having trouble to call a remote expert and get live over-the-shoulder support by combining video, audio, and the ability for both parties to annotate their view and mark up their real-world environment with annotations that are anchored so that you're able to actually move around, or the worker is able to move around while giving the remote worker the ability to annotate. So it really makes the expert as effective. Well, I won't say as effective, almost as effective as if they were on site with the worker, making those travel costs and, of course, the safety problems that we are facing right now. We can eliminate those, and we can still be able to have the ability to resolve those problems quickly. So next, I'm going to show you a quick demo video that I recorded actually yesterday with Jeff Brown, Aquitas CEO, and fantastic demo buddy, by the way. This is based off of a real scenario that I encountered a couple weeks ago where I had to change the filter for the first time in a new fridge after my ice maker broke in my old one. And I ended up having to YouTube instructions of how to do this when the written instructions just weren't enough. It's a perfect scenario where if a technician hits a roadblock when completing a PM, in this case, would be able to call an expert to get help right there in real time. And this one is in particular related to steps 1 and 2 there that you see on the screen.
So Maddy texted me that she had some questions about replacing a water filter on a refrigerator. So she sent me a chalk session, which I'm going to connect to now and see if I can help her out. So let me go ahead and click on the URL here and join the session. And it's up on my screen. Maddy, are you there?
Yep. Hey, Jeff, can you hear me?
Yep, everything's good. What's the problem?
All right, so I got this work order. I've got to change out a water filter on this Whirlpool refrigerator. Step 1 and 2 just say to access the filter by pressing upward on the rib section and turning filter counterclockwise, but not really sure where it even is. My old one had a filter on the bottom left, so wondering if you can help me out.
Yeah, I've replaced it on this model before. Yeah, no problem at all. So let's go ahead and start out. Just open the right door. The filter's on the top side. And if you want to, the eggs on the top shelf, if you remove those, because the filter is this thing right there.
Ah, okay.
That whole section is the filter. And what they do is they tell you to hit the rib section. Yeah, so right where your finger there is.
Yeah, that doesn't really do anything.
Incorrect. So instead of pulling down on this piece right there, there's a hole behind there, right there, that you put your finger up into and you kind of pull it towards you and down from the ceiling.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. And then I just rotate left?
Not yet. So the next thing you're going to do is this canister that's right here. You're going to pull it down from the ceiling towards the shelf like that. And you're going to grab this end of it right there and pull it straight down.
Okay.
It's a little snug, but you'll see what I mean when there you go.
Oh, yeah. It comes down.
Okay. And then there you'll notice there is an arrow right here to turn it counterclockwise.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just give it a turn, about a quarter turn, and it should slide out.
Oh, yep. There it is.
There along
with water. Let me grab my new one.
Then you put the new one back in. You just reverse the steps on the new one.
All right. So I stick it in here.
Yeah. So once it's in, so you're going to go clockwise now this way to screw it back in. The same about quarter turn is what it takes to put it in.
Perfect. And then just push up.
Straight up, back into the ceiling. And then put that on as well. Yep.
Awesome. All right. Perfect. Thanks, Jeff.
Sure. No problem. Talk to you later.
Bye. All right, to be clear, I did know where the water filter was after looking for it, and I did actually figure out how to get the cover off, but I needed a YouTube video to figure out that I actually needed to pull the filter down before I could remove it. I was trying to just turn the filter as the instructions said from step 1 to step 2, and it just wasn't possible. There had to be a step missing, and I figured out that there indeed was. So Jeff was able to help me using chalk in that example. So now I'm going to start a video that, again, was pre-recorded earlier this week with Jason Verley from Agripure, Asset and Reliability Engineering Manager over there. We weren't sure if he was able to join today, so we wanted to go ahead and record this ahead of time just to be safe. So here is Jason Verley. All right, so I'm here with Jason Verley, our Asset and Reliability Engineering Manager from Agripure, and also Maximo Super User. Jason, how's that title make you feel, Maximo Super User?
Oh, that's just a title. I just continue to help out where I can and participate in the community. So that's been my biggest thing is not necessarily what I know, but just being part of the larger Maximo community.
That's
but I
right.
appreciate the accolades.
Well, you're what I would consider a Maximo super user, someone who's always looking to make the most out of Maximo and by optimizing operations and the way you use it to improve processes, which, by the way, doesn't go unnoticed. I actually have our little Maximo World Award trophy from last year, best data alignment with business processes. So you do a lot of great work in the Maximo community and within Agripure. So, you know, with all the things that you've been doing and how progressive I think that you've been as a Maximo customer and how you embrace new technologies and how to improve things, you know, it was really no surprise to me when the pandemic hit that you were one of the first customers to kind of dive right in and testing out some of this, you know, remote collaboration technology. And so, you know, before we jump into that, I kind of want to take a step back in talking about augmented reality. Obviously, you know, before COVID hit and everything changed, what was your perspective on where augmented reality really fit in a Maximo customer as far as, you know, where it fell in your roadmap? Was it something that you as a Maximo user were already looking at? Was it something you just kind of knew about, but it wasn't something really in the, you know, in the actual strategic roadmap yet? What were your thoughts there?
It actually was on our roadmap. For us in the food manufacturing sector, we've been, like a lot of manufacturing groups, dealing with an aging workforce, a tightening workforce. And so that's allowed us or forced us to actually look at other ways to train, inform, and bring information to our workforce, because the flip side to that tightening workforce is how do we continue to be competitive? And so in a number of our factories, we've increased the automation. We've got robotics and other highly functional automation platforms. And so for us to continue to maintain those types of assets and those pieces of equipment, we've needed to start looking at other ways to inform and walk through an employee to how to do things. So we looked at various platforms, and the euphoria platform was one that was on our radar to be able to mate with Maximo, saying, here's the work order to go do a calibration as an example. And we may not have the tech that was fully trained on calibrations, but we can then give that augmented step-by-step process to allow the technician to see what he's got to be working on, what are the steps, what are the tools, what are the precautions, all the things that the technician would need to have at their disposal without having someone else to hold their hand to do the work. And then as the pandemic hit, we needed to focus on now not the more of the proactive stance, but now a reactive stance to us addressing things in the plants. We started looking at ways now to be able to manage situations in the plant, manage needs in the plants, because for us, we've got subject matter experts on different types of equipment. We've got, you know, someone that's dealing with certain types of controls, certain types of robotics, certain types of operating equipment, and that shifted us now to needing those subject matter experts to be able to look in the plant as well.
Right, because so how do you manage that now when everybody's, you know, had to, first of all of the non-essential workers were moved home, which I know you and I have talked about this a little bit, what we'll call your knowledge workers are still, and your subject matter expertise are all working remotely, and they need to be able to still help or see what's going on, right? So how do you manage that, and what were those challenges like when things first hit and you didn't have the infrastructure or the technology in place yet?
And that was the problem, is exactly that. Non-essential workers, which I was one of them, were sent home, but we still needed to help and support things that were going on in the
Yeah.
plant. And so for a while it was phone calls and someone taking a picture off of their phone, sending it via email, showing what the issue was, or hopefully transcribing an error message or some sort of alert message off of the piece of equipment, and going back and forth on what it was. And we realized that, we're not going to be traveling anytime soon, so we need to look at a newer technology, a new way for us to be able to see what's going on in the plant, and that's what Chalk offered for us. It allowed us to be able to see real-time conditions in the plant, things that we needed to see, because what ended up happening a lot of times is the person that was now responding to the situation wasn't the subject matter expert, and at times would make assumptions on what that expert would want to see. So a
Interesting.
screen, a condition of the equipment, sometimes sound, depending on what it was. Those nuances that an expert would pick up on were ignored or lost on the first responder to the situation. And so when they're taking pictures, and doing that email back and forth method, that picture missed a corner that made a difference to someone watching what was going on, or only wrote down 80% of the error message and stuff. So that was the problem we had, initially. But then as we looked at some of the technologies like Chalk, that allowed us to say, hey, move 2 feet to the right and down a little bit and look at another part of the screen, or move further away from the equipment to see part of the process and understand, well, here's the equipment, but the temperature transmitter that's 2 feet away is reading 25 degrees higher than it's supposed to. Start troubleshooting from those kind of conditions.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting, because it addresses not just the ability to collaborate in real time, but the ability to troubleshoot faster. And so it seems to me, from what you just explained, that one of the biggest differences beyond just being able to collaborate in real time was how quickly you could actually address problems with the subject matter expert and get them what's the right word? Troubleshooted. Troubleshot in real time. No, so that, I think that's really powerful. But there had to have been challenges too. You guys are in a noisy environment. What was it like trying to embrace Chalk as a new technology? And did you have challenges as we started walking down this path of trying to implement?
So some of them is getting out of old habits. When we first started having these problems, or even historically, getting a phone call to an automation manager or maintenance manager at 11 o'clock at night. For the last umpteen years, it's been send a picture, email them, call them on the phone, try and talk it over, or have them drive in. And so first one was old habits die hard. Here's a new tool for your toolbox, but for the last umpteen years, I've just called you up and asked you to come in and look at it. The maintenance manager, the automation manager, whoever it was that was responding to this, that was how they were trained, and so they just went in as well. So regrooving the tool sets that people had was one of them. The other one is, you mentioned, in food manufacturing, there are noisy areas of the plant, and so with the technology for Chalk, it uses your phone, it uses the phone's microphone as the pickup, so it picked up everything. And we would have problems sometimes communicating in real time, where they're focusing on this part of the equipment. We want them to move off a little bit. I'm screaming in my phone, or whoever's screaming in their phone, and the person on the floor can't hear it. The volume on the phone just can't get loud enough. So there was sometimes back and forth where they'd go out, they'd look at it, and they couldn't see it. The other part is that, for our infrastructure, large portions of the plant have Wi-Fi access, not everywhere. And so with building material construction, the other part was sometimes cell signal or Wi-Fi signal wasn't everything we wanted it to be. So in some of the factories that have adopted this, they've looked at their Wi-Fi hotspot maps and says, nope, we need to add access point here or there to try and get the broader coverage.
And what's the future of augmented reality look like? I mean, obviously, there's so much beyond just what we see with chalk and expert capture to full digital twins and building that digital thread where we can combine that IoT data that you're gathering. I mean, what's the future of augmented reality look like to you in the maintenance space?
It's an open world. It's the things that the team that's looking at this it's been all over the place. We could do this, we could do this, we could do this. We're more scattered with what we think we could do versus trying to focus on what we should be working on. We're still trying to get out of, the COVID side of things, within our businesses. Our plants are just starting to open back up to allowing, like for myself, internally to travel to another facility. And so what we could do and what we think we could do, we're still putting Post-it notes on the drawing board of what we think we might be able to do. I think right now the biggest focus for us is going back to the ideas of here's the asset, here's the buttons, here's all the things that you should be dealing with when doing some complex maintenance or other complex operations, and allow them to walk through that. But as we've talked, we've put things like we have, for example, ammonia refrigeration in most of our facilities. That's a regulated chemical in OSHA for process safety management. Now we've got PSM and now safety procedures we could be implementing for augmented reality to make sure when we do a startup or shutdown of a piece of equipment, press this button, shut that valve, open this up, turn that on, and you've successfully started or shut down that per our regulated programs. So we're just trying to get out of things and then look at what we can do. And I think that's going to be the first thing we're trying to wrap our arms around is the augmented directions and for work orders, calibrations, operations, that kind of thing.
Agree. I love it. And the sky's the limit there, really.
Yeah.
Let's end with this. If you had one piece of advice to give other Maximo customers as far as getting started with augmented reality, what would it be?
Yeah, it'd be a couple actually. One is think about the people that are using it and give them the business case, the reasons why. We had a mix, within our company. We had some people saying, "Yeah, this is what we want. We give it to us." Others like, seems like more than what we need. We'll pass. Looking back, that was actually pretty good for us because as we looked at other technologies that we're trying to bring into the company, the plants that says, no, we'll hold off, actually would have had bigger challenges because of, like, for example, like hotspots for Wi-Fi. They had less Wi-Fi coverage, or they had more challenges due to cell service. So, for example, some of our facilities aren't exactly metropolitan. Being a dairy manufacturer, we're typically more out in the sticks, so to speak. And so, cell coverage is not necessarily 100%. When you're 30 miles, 45 miles out of a metropolitan area, or eastern South Dakota, or southern Minnesota, eastern Wisconsin. And so with those facilities, the desire to use it may be there, but the overall technology or infrastructure to support it wouldn't be there. The other one that we would say then is really thinking about the introduction to the business, and like we struggled with, was the retooling of your habits. If you don't make this into what you do and really formalize, okay, it's 2 a.m, grab the iPad from the docking station, go out to it, and then contact your subject matter expert versus making the phone call and saying it's broken and hoping that person's going to respond with the right questions to drive a potential troubleshooting scenario or find out what the root cause is. Get the training, get things done so that the person that's going to respond is responding proactively versus having someone remember, oh, we do have this new tool that would allow us to see this issue sooner or better.
Makes sense. Same with other major enterprise solutions that we're trying to implement, right? Training is always a key to success and buy-in from everyone across the enterprise. So fantastic. Jason Verley, really appreciate the talk. I think that, and I hope everyone that attends the webcast on Wednesday will appreciate it as well. We miss you seeing your face at conferences, so hopefully this makes up for it a little bit for all
Maximo
the
World in December.
That's right. That's right.
Oh.
All right. Gosh, just makes me smile every time. And by the way, anyone who knows Jason, you see that new look he is rocking. Gotta love it. Anyways, so to wrap things up, here is one of the easiest takeaways you can possibly have from a webcast. PTC is actually offering Euphoria Chalk for free through the end of August. It's a great way to just dip your toes in with no strings attached and start testing out one of these new technologies. So, the link is at the bottom of the screen, aquitasolutions.com/chalk-offer. The link will be available in the slides that get sent out after this, but you can also feel free to contact me or the organizers directly, or just go to our website and I'm sure you'll find it. All right, so I know we are right up at time right now, but if any questions came in, we can open up the floor to take a couple questions now.
Yeah, Maddy, a couple questions. Is there a difference between using the HoloLens and RealWear device?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Actually, Dimitri, I'm going to pass this one over to you, Dimitri from PTC to answer.
Perfect. Yeah, so just a few differences. So Microsoft HoloLens, we like to think of it as 3D eyewear, and so it can leverage a little bit more functionality in terms of what we call anchoring. So with the HoloLens, you could tie a procedure to a specific location or a specific piece of equipment, which you wouldn't be able to do with the RealWear. However, the RealWear does have its own benefits. So it's very good at noise canceling. So if you're in a loud environment, it'll be very good at just taking in the instructions from the person wearing the device and not any external noise. And then I'll also mention the Vuzix, so that is going to be a third wearable that you could potentially use as well. And then one other thing between the HoloLens and the RealWear, I would also add that the RealWear is going to be pretty durable. So I have one and I've dropped it once and it was fine. So I will say in terms of fragility, it's going to be very durable as well.
Great, thanks, Dimitri. Any other questions, Rachel?
One more. Are either of these integrated with Maximo?
Oh, that's a really great one. So the short answer is no. Right now, we have in our roadmap to look at integrating Chalk in a way that we can easily launch a Chalk call to the right subject matter expert right from a work order. But that is in our roadmap, like I said. But for expert capture, it's really as easy as like you saw when Matt did the demo, he has the ability to publish a URL, for example, that you can just view it on a website or do it through the mobile application. And so we can include that link automatically on a job plan in a work order. So anytime that work order is created with that specific job plan, you've got that link to the expert capture training procedure right there ready to access. So then it's really more of a training issue as far as educating your workforces to access the video. Any other questions?
That's it for questions.
Awesome. Well, that's an easy audience then. And that's a good thing because it looks like we're about 4 minutes over my allotted time, so we can go ahead and wrap up. Really appreciate everyone for joining today. Really appreciate the support from everyone who participated in my webcast today. So everyone enjoy the rest of your day and look forward to talking about augmented reality.